Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the FDIC Board to order. Before we start, I'd like to welcome our two new board members attending their first board meeting. We have Rodney Hood, the Acting Comptroller of the Currency, and Russell Vogt, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget and the Acting Director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. There are several items on the summary agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the summary agenda? May I have a motion to approve the minutes, memorandum of action and resolution, and accept the board reports on the summary agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion is adopted.
Can I make a quick statement, though, please, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? I'd just like to note for the record that I was not a member of the FDIC Board of Directors for the December 17th, 2024 meeting. So today I am casting my vote for the other summary agenda items.
We have one item on the discussion agenda, the semi-annual update for the Deposit Insurance Fund Restoration Plan. Ashley Mahalik, Dan Hoople, and Ryan McCarthy will present the case. Guys can come up. And you may begin.
Good afternoon, Acting Chairman Hill and members of the board. I am here today to deliver the first semi-annual update of 2025 for the restoration plan of the Deposit Insurance Fund. The Deposit Insurance Fund, or DIF, has operated under a restoration plan since 2020, when extraordinary growth in insured deposits caused the DIF reserve ratio, or the ratio of the fund balance to insured deposits, to fall below the statutory minimum of 1.35%. The plan maintained the assessment rate schedules in place at the time and required staff to monitor and provide semi-annual updates on potential losses, deposit balance trends, and other factors that affect the DIF balance and reserve ratio. In June 2022, the board amended the restoration plan based on projections indicating that the reserve ratio was at risk of not reaching the statutory minimum by the deadline of September 30th, 2028. Pursuant to the amended restoration plan, the board subsequently increased initial base assessment rates by 2 basis points, effective January 1st, 2023. The following is the first update of 2025 based on data as of year-end 2024. As of December 31st, 2024, the DIF balance totaled $137.1 billion, up $7.9 billion from June 30th, 2024. The increase in the DIF balance, combined with slower than average insured deposit growth, resulted in a 6 basis points increase in the reserve ratio, from 1.22% as of June 30th to 1.28% as of December 31st. Growth in the DIF balance was largely attributable to assessments earned, which totaled $6.5 billion for the second half of 2024. In addition to assessments earned, net investment contributions further increased the DIF balance by $2.2 billion. Negative loss provisions also added $400 million. Operating expenses of $1.3 billion partially offset these increases in the DIF balance. Insured deposit growth in the second half of 2024 was well below the historical average, continuing trends reported in the first half of the year. As of December 31st, year-over-year insured deposit growth was 0.5 of a percentage point, which was 4 percentage points below the long-run historical average of 4.5%. This was the slowest annual growth reported since 2013. Based on information as of year-end 2024, staff project the DIF to incur a low level of costs associated with bank failures over the next several years. The number of problem institutions was unchanged over the second half of 2024, and the share of problem banks relative to total banks remained within the normal range for non-crisis periods. The banking industry reported strong earnings in the second half of 2024. Net income increased in the fourth quarter of 2024 and asset quality metrics remain generally favorable despite continued weakness in certain portfolios. The industry's net interest margin increased for a second consecutive quarter and is above its pre-pandemic average as of December 31st. Taking into account these factors, staff continue to project that the reserve ratio is likely to meet 1.35% ahead of the deadline of September 30th, 2028. While subject to uncertainty, staff project that the reserve ratio will most likely reach the statutory minimum by year-end 2025. However, it is possible that the reserve ratio could remain below 1.35% beyond this year, particularly if losses for past and future failures increase beyond staff estimates, or if insured deposit growth is significantly higher than expected. Staff recommended no changes to the amended restoration plan at this time. Under the amended restoration plan, staff will continue to monitor factors that affect the reserve ratio and update projections for the fund balance and reserve ratio at least semi-annually. Staff continue to believe that frequent updates are warranted to incorporate additional information and because loss and reserve ratio projections are subject to significant uncertainty. Staff plan to provide the next semi-annual update in the second half of this year. Thank you for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll read a statement and then I'll turn to the other board members. In September 2020, the Deposit Insurance Fund reserve ratio fell below the statutory minimum of 1.35%. On account of the unprecedented COVID-era fiscal and monetary stimulus, the growth of insured deposits, the denominator of the reserve ratio, far outpaced the growth in the DIF net worth, the numerator of the reserve ratio, which is primarily driven by assessment revenue. The resulting restoration plan requires the FDIC to update its analysis and projections for the DIF balance and reserve ratio and report to the FDIC board at least semi-annually. Since the previous update, the DIF reserve ratio increased by 6 basis points from 1.22% as of June 30th, 2024 to 1.28% as of December 31st, 2024. We will have a further update next week with the release of the first quarterly banking profile. Staff project that the reserve ratio is likely to reach the statutory minimum of 1.35% ahead of the statutory deadline. Separate from, but related to, the restoration plan, I think we should consider whether insured deposits is the right metric to measure the DIF's exposure to losses. The FDIC moved away from charging assessments on the basis of insured deposits years ago, creating a mismatch in how assessments are charged and how the health of the DIF is measured. One alternative permitted by the FDI Act is to use the assessment base rather than insured deposits as the denominator of the reserve ratio, and I've asked staff to analyze this option for future consideration. I would like to thank the FDIC staff for their work on the restoration plan and their continued efforts to monitor factors that affect the reserve ratio. Director Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your presentation today. Very insightful. I just have one quick question. That is, could you maybe give me a range of what some of the DIF investment income is?
So the investment income over the second half of 2024 was $2.2 billion. Almost all of that was interest earned. In prior years, there has been significant movement in the unrealized gains and losses for available for sale securities. But over 2024, that has remained fairly marginal.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions. And again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Director Vogt.
No statement or question, but thank you for the presentation.
This concludes the open meeting agenda business for today. Is there any new business? The open meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. We will now convene the closed meeting of the board.